Hi everyone, I'm Josh.
And I'm Jim, and this is the Dapper Meeple.
This show is about our love of gaming, the games we play, and the gaming community around this passion.
So grab some snacks, pull up a chair, and join us at the table with your monocle and bowler hat. Hey kids, remember, this is an adult podcast and may contain adult language.
Also, the Dapper Meeple outfit, not required.
Hey, can you guys believe they let us back on here?
Kevin Smith was right. No one's regulating this podcast thing.
Hey, whether it's right or wrong, we're back, and we brought a guest.
We met Charlie at a D&D one-shot, and he said he wanted to come on the show, so we said sure.
And now he's going to kick off this season for us, so sit back and enjoy. Hey, I hope everybody enjoyed that little break that we gave you. I hope you played some good games. I hope you met some new people. I know that we definitely did, and it's been a blast. And we've got another guest, which you all know is the best part of doing this podcast. And it's home DMs. I love the idea of hearing about DMs that are actually doing it professionally. So our guest, you can find him across all of his socials as The Ink GM, LLC. And he's the co-host of the Story Crafters podcast. Charlie, welcome to the Dapper Meeple.
Thank you for having me, guys. So glad to be here.
So we met Charlie. One of the people that, again, we met through the podcast was running a kind of test D&D.
A one-shot test for a new thing he was trying to run at conventions.
Yep.
Mike from the Weather Dragon. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and take a listen. And if you haven't looked at his tables that he makes online, fantastic.
I absolutely love those tables.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I get to run games with them every week over at Tower, and it is phenomenal. Absolutely love it. I can't get enough of them.
And if you've got an extra $8,000 laying around, go buy you one of them tables.
Yeah, absolutely. But he was running a one-shot test for a new convention game that he wanted to run that was like King of the Hill style. Although we didn't really know that going in. He didn't give us a whole lot of information. It was like make a character and show up.
Yeah.
So,
I loved it. Blind, baby.
Yeah.
Good old mystery.
Yeah. So that's when we met Charlie, and he was like, oh, yeah, I want to come on your podcast.
Yeah. I heard your guys' episode with Mike and with Chris, and I was like, please, I want to come on.
Nice.
You guys were awesome to listen to.
I like to think that we're incredibly entertaining. And guess what? We're not going to send the Pinkertons after you. Boom!
Glad we started off the new season early, right? Got to get the Pinkerton jokes in.
Still watching you, Hasbro. Still watching you. So, yeah, man. Welcome to the show. I know that we're moving in the same circles. D&D, TTRPGs are a huge thing for us, which at this point, 58 episodes in, people have figured out. What we normally start with when we bring a guest in is what we call your kind of geek bona fides. How did you get here? What brought you into this sphere of influence? And yeah, where you are with it. Spotlight, baby.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, honestly. As many GMs and anyone else playing D&D, you have your usual group that you meet with at home and get together and play. And, of course, life happened for my group. But in the best way, we had somebody who was having their second child at the same time, another person who him and his wife had been trying to adopt for multiple years. And then the agency was like, how about twins? And they were like, okay. So I was like, and the group is over.
Yeah.
But I wasn't upset. But I did want to continue playing D&D. And as you guys know, locally, Chris with Rogue Game Masters, I had heard about them over at Tower, seeing their stuff, and I was like, let me look into this, right?
Yeah.
It's the big thing was in-person D&D. I did D&D over COVID, and over the internet is fine. There are some advantages.
Sure.
As with anything there is. But there's just not that magic of in-person.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Chris and was like, hey, I'm curious about this, but DMing professionally, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm qualified to do that, if I'm able to serve that role and be in that capacity, but I do know that I really want to play D&D more.
Right.
But I don't know enough people that aren't engaged with other things to be able to meet on a regular basis.
Right. Adulting. Garbage.
Yeah. The flip side of that was also, I have this homebrew world that I've been working on for many years, Adventures After an Arcane Apocalypse. And I want to eventually get it published and do a Kickstarter and everything. But part of that is I need to play test it, get feedback.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, if people are paying to be there for every session, they have a really good vested interest to give me their honest feedback of what they like and they don't like. And I definitely want to give them the best experience that I can. There's definitely advantages to both parties, being really honest with each other. So I was like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
We'll start. I'll try to do a one shot, try to do a campaign. We'll see where it goes. And long story short, started that with Chris. And then here I am now with 3 campaigns that meet bi-weekly. And I'm playing more D&D in the last 10 months than I've played in my entire life.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And it is just fantastic. What came with that was trying to promote the first campaign. And I was like posting stuff on my personal social media accounts. And I was like, there's only a couple people maybe in the area that I'm friends with that would be interested. And then there's 95% of people that probably don't care about anything I'm posting about. So I was like, let me just make a separate social media account to try to post it and everything. And so that's what started Ink GM. And then it took off. People really liked it.
Yeah.
Also turned out, I guess I was a little bit funnier than I originally thought I was. Made some remixed reels that, went viral. And then next thing you know, I have 5,000 followers. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I was meeting a lot of really incredible people in the community and making connections and just getting, again, to do more D&D than I had ever done before. And I was like, this is what a great problem to have.
That's how so many of them are. Like, show up for the dice and you end up staying for the people.
Yep.
So how long had you been playing before you came into this?
So I only started about a year and a half prior to COVID.
Okay.
So really only about 4 or 5 years of D&D.
Man.
That's about where I came in too.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah. Where I got very lucky, though, was my DM, he's a great guy. He's been playing since he was a kid with his family and friends. And so he started the campaign and he was wholly committed to it. We were meeting pretty much every week.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah.
It ran for 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And went from level 1 to 20.
Nice.
It was the best experience. And then what's so funny is I thought that was largely the standard into it.
Oh, my
towards
sweet
the end,
summer
I was
child.
learning more, like, oh, this is actually like the unicorn of campaigns and groups. And then being in the community and especially in a paid DM role, I was just like, wow, I am so grateful for that experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man.
I've had I actually started playing in like 99, 2000, when third edition came out, because I actually started with Advanced, which was the second edition. Forever Live Thaco.
AD&D.
Yeah. Which is funny because I meet people now, like older people like me, that have played the older one. I just met a guy and he was like, yeah, second's the best edition ever. I would never run anything else. And I was like,
Really?
Yeah. It's like when people get divorced, but they're like, man, I think I still love my ex. I was like, that's because you're remembering the good parts, all right? We're not going to talk about Thaco. That's why you still think it's good. But yeah. So it's been a while. I've loved 5th edition.
It's fantastic. My favorite meme about Thaco is how instead of playing basketball, we were trying to throw the basketball in the hoop. You're instead trying to throw the hoop on the basketball.
Yep.
And I'm like, yep, 100%. That's what it seems like. I gave it a shot once and I was like, I know where they're going with this. And I understand where this might have definitely worked in certain circumstances, but I was like, this is really hard to apply broadly.
I think maybe 2nd edition works better if you're doing more of that straight dungeon crawl, hack and slash, combat simulator.
Absolutely.
With all the the different changes and stuff that come along, I think 5th lends itself to easier storytelling.
100%.
Yeah, and I love that part of it. So TTRPGs, specifically D&D, right? So as far as like video games, board games, like have you always been a nerd too? Did you get beat up in high school too?
Yeah. Especially because I was also very much the goth kid.
Okay.
But for some reason, again, I think it just comes back to sometimes I just find myself being funnier than I to be.
Yeah.
And it tends to keep people pretty entertained. So that helps. But yeah, largely Pokemon was the first thing that I got into and then still am to this day. Very proud of my level 41 on Pokemon Go.
Nice.
Prior to the bump that they did to level 50, I was the old school level 40, not the new school. But yeah, Pokemon was my absolute favorite thing growing up.
So I gotta ask, what's your favorite Pokemon game, mainline game?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I mean,
What was the first one you played?
It was Pokemon Red.
Okay,
And
good choice.
And you're saying this, and I was like, oh, I love Soul Silver. Thought that was a really great remake that they did. And Ruby also just plays a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to be honestly Fire Red.
Yeah,
the remake of Red
was
was
Chef's kiss.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I just want them to put it on the Switch That's all I want. It's great. Absolutely. I have my DS that I plug it into, but just to have it on the Switch and the bigger graphics and everything
We'll talk about
would
that
just be
later.
so nice.
But yeah, no, I definitely was the same way because I'm a 90s kid.
Yep.
Right. I grew up, Pokemon was real big for me. That was my intro, I think, into the nerd world as well before board games and all that stuff that came later. But 100%. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and I collected Pokemon cards for the art rather than to play. What I did end up actually diving into and played in some tournaments when I was a kid was Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
That was just such a great,
Right. I love the fact that it was a show that already had the cards built into it.
which was so cool. It made it not meta. It just made it
Yeah.
no, this is canon. Like you feel like you're in it and
Yep.
really playing. But it also was just like really easy, straightforward mechanics too. And it was just really adaptable. And it was also built in the best way. My friends and I, what we would love to do is just save up our money. And once every couple months, we'd ride our bikes down to Toys R Us or Target, whatever kind of store we could find, and just buy like 10 packs and then make a deck or two out of those right there out of those cards. So like really test our skills. That's what we told ourselves.
Yeah.
It was great.
I'm listening to this whole conversation because I missed that boat for the most part. I was actually my first 2 years in the Navy. I was over in Japan and I got talked into coaching kids soccer, which I will say my soccer team still has a record. We were the only 10 and under soccer team to get arrested by base police.
Wow.
Go us. Yeah. I left them unattended for too long. They started throwing dirt at cars. Wild ass kids. But one of them, I was like, all right, guys, take off all your jewelry and stuff. And one of them took off, they handed me something. And it was a ring and it was a Starmie. And I was like, oh, Starmie. And they're like, Pokemon? I was like, my brother's into Pokemon. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense because you're old. And I said, you know what, you little shits. But I've listened to this conversation and all I can hear is, have you seen Creature Commandos yet on HBO?
No.
It's basically like Suicide Squad. They told them they couldn't use people anymore. So they're like, all right, we're going to catch monsters. So it's like Frankenstein's Bride, the weasel's in it. Yeah. There's a dude who's super radiated and he just burns through stuff. That's actually voiced by Alan Tudyk. Which,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love him.
Yeah. But then there's G.I. Robot. Yeah, it's just this robot that was designed in World War II just to kill Nazis. That's his whole thing.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I just hear his voice where his is, oh boy, Nazis. And I'm just hearing, oh boy, millennials. I imagine you run into Chris. I know Tower Games is, I got to tell you, I have been a lot more impressed with them. I've been in this area for 15 years or so. Tower wasn't a place that I was like, Atlantis was my go-to for a lot of stuff. But I will tell you, I feel like Tower has really stepped up their game in the last couple years. It used to be, I had a lot of friends of mine too that had said that they were uncomfortable going in there, especially like women. Because they said it just didn't feel like, it felt like a boys club. And then in the last couple years though, like I've been in there and like other people have been like, yep, way more comfortable, really enjoy. And then all the stuff that they offer, like the game rooms and stuff they have where Mike's building tables.
I was going to say, I was like, Mike did that back room for them with the 4 tables and the dragon heads and everything. It's such an incredible ambiance. That was same when I moved down here. I was looking for card stores and game stores. The big box ones are not bad for certain things.
Sure.
But you like to find the local stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get great deals or unique things that you won't find elsewhere.
Yep.
And you can also just find people that are literally working there, not just for a paycheck. And they really want to talk to people and and share stories and everything. And you can learn so much. And so, yeah, I went looking around and everything. And when I went to the Tower location at Virginia Beach and saw that back room with the tables and the dragon heads on the wall, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And immediately was like, how do I get to how do I get to use that room?
Play here? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's a fee and everything else. And then I will say that was another thing that sold me too, was being able to be a GM with Rogue Game Masters, partnered with Tower. You can run games over there and it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. What a great space to be in and be immersed in this game, which was...
Yeah, I was just traveling for work, and for a week or so, like 4 days, I was out in San Diego. So I was like, oh man, I'm out here. I'm gonna go check out a couple of the game stores and just bounce around. Dude, for me, just getting to walk in and you're like, oh, these are my people. I'm here. We got a lot of weird ones. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I'm in there, right? But yeah, I took some people with me that were not yet part of this, but they're slowly, they've been hooked.
Coming around.
Yeah, right. But there was one that I saw and they had a back room like that had 2, they were like U-shaped tables where the DM sits in the middle. And then they had 10 of the dragon heads and the owlbear and the, all around the room. So I think that extra little bit of kind of ambiance really brings it around. So I can appreciate that at Tower.
Yeah.
So getting in with the rogue DM and then deciding to become like a pro DM. Was that even something that you had considered until you bumped into Chris?
No, it was, like I said, the whole reason I even considered it was simply because it was like, I don't have a D&D group anymore and I want to play D&D.
Yeah.
So I looked at it less as an avenue of service or career or making money or anything like that, and just looked at it more as like an opportunity to hopefully play more D&D. Like hopefully we can, enough people will give me a shot and sit at my table and enjoy it.
Right.
And then I was just so fortunate that a lot of people really this homebrew world that I was offering, and it literally I did a series of one shots set in my homebrew world, and several people were like, "Yes, I'm joining the campaign." I was like, "Cool, what? I've got this one group we're meeting every other Thursday, just over here if you're interested."
Yeah.
And then I told my wife, I was like, "Oh yeah, I've had several people that said they're actually wanting to do. I'm curious to see how it goes." And then first session it was 3 people. Next session it was full 6. And then I had several people sending me messages and were like, "Are you offering any other campaigns?" I was like, I wasn't thinking about it. I was just like hoping to have one.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I was like, "I don't know, what are you thinking?" She was like, "Got the time you can make for it, go for it.
Yeah.
You love this." And I was like, "I do."
Right.
I was like, "All right." So started another campaign. That filled. And then again, it was the same thing. I was like, "Okay, let's do this."
I love to talking to you, talking to Chris, and other people that we've talked to at cons and stuff that are looking into that professional DMing. None of them are like, "Man, I'm going to go get rich and I'm going to be the next Matt Mercer." All of them are like, "You know what I'm going to do? Play more damn D&D." And it's and every now and then somebody drops money into my account. It's awesome. But yeah,
That's something that I tell people all the time whenever they ask me about DMing professionally is, what can you advise? What can you recommend? And I'm like, don't do it for the money.
No.
Like, do it because you want to.
Yep.
And that's what's going to bring people to your table.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you are there because you genuinely want to be there, other people will want to as well. Because they also ask, they're like, "Do I have to do a homebrew world? Can I do a pre-written module?" And I was like, it all depends on your enthusiasm and what you're interested in. If you're not enthusiastic about a pre-written module, or you like your home world setting, but you don't feel comfortable presenting it to people, that's going to resonate at the table.
Yeah.
Definitely. You come in and do something that you really want to sit down for several hours and commit to, your players will show up. They will find you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And for those that have never been on the other side of the screen, preparing a game and getting ready, not only with a story that you may have in mind in a general outline, because they're gonna go off script.
Oh, that's the best part.
Right. We're going to tell your story. I've got this big bad guy. If you want to ignore him, I can put something else out there. But yeah, that kind of preparing and being ready and just being enthusiastic about playing the game, that resonates so well back and forth if you've got good players. And I've seen some people that have showed up to the table and they're like, "I've never done this before and I'm nervous and I don't know if I want to do silly voices." And it's like, hey, you just walk through, you do what you want to do, be happy and have fun. And, the 3rd or 4th session, they're like, "I think I want to change my accent." We can make that work.
Go for it.
Yeah.
You've been faking this whole time.
Yeah.
You're actually from over here. Perfect.
I love that.
Yeah. You got to think on your feet. Think on your feet.
And I will say 2 things about what you just said, which is one, right, about Matt Mercer. A lot of people, I think, have looked at the community and for some reason give a lot of slack towards Critical Role and everything else. But the fact that was a group that started just like how I did and how many other people do in this space, which is they were just friends playing D&D at home,
Yep.
Yeah.
doing their own thing, having a good time. And then by happenstance, they had a friend that ran Geek and Sundry
Felicia
and
Day.
was like, "Hey, you guys are having a lot of fun at this table." Not so much because they're voice actors. That was the selling element. The selling element was you guys are having a lot of fun and you're really fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's what I notice
Yeah.
is I'm really grateful. And it really means a lot to me whenever I'm running a game at Tower and I have people that walk by and will go, "Sorry to interrupt. Is it okay if I just stand over here and watch
Right.
or listen to you guys?" And I open it to my players. I'm like, "Are you guys okay with that?" And they always say yes. And it's never like a forced yes. It is an enthusiastic
Yeah.
yes, because they're also like, really? Okay. And that is such a great badge of honor, because it means we're having so much fun. Other people are enjoying that and watching that and want to be a part of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's going to be the mark of a professional game.
Yeah.
It's not being the fact that it's paid. It's not the fact that you have fancy stuff at the table. It's not that you are a voice actor. It's that you know how to bring those people together and immerse them in a space that they feel comfortable telling a story together.
Yeah.
And have so much fun that other people are excited to watch these people have fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's how all these like live play games for years have happened. We go to PAX all the time. That's our go-to. And we watch the Penny Arcade guys. And I absolutely love those guys. And it is definitely like one of the silliest campaigns that gets played, right? But it is always so much fun.
Yeah.
To just sit and watch them, and they're just having a good time.
Yeah.
I love watching Jeremy Crawford as a DM. He's definitely my top 5.
Yep.
I don't know if I could bump him up too high, but definitely my top 5. But yeah, sitting and watching this, and I think there's something fundamental in the human soul that storytelling is. I mean, Hollywood is all about storytelling, and we're talking billions and billions of dollars. And you go sit and watch somebody else's story. And I'm going to give you a chance to sit down and tell the story you want. I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And you've got to love it to get in there and really play. We've played long campaigns and stuff. And yeah.
I mean, we would remember people like Plato and Homer if it wasn't for the fact that people love a good story.
Yeah.
And that's really what, you see all these people come into the space and do the actual plays. And that's really just going to be the mark of that they're going to be successful or not, is not the fact of how good their recording is, how good their quality of display is and everything else, or what their social media strategy is.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how good their story is and sharing that story with each other for others to be able to just be a fly on the wall and want to listen to or watch.
Yeah, I think that's a really awesome metric almost to hold yourself to, because I know for me, when coming into the hobby, DMing seemed unapproachable at first, intimidating even, and I wonder how many other people out there watch things like Critical Role, Dimension 20, and they see these guys who have been playing for probably most of their lives and are really good at it, and then they go, man, I could never do that.
Yeah.
But in reality, like you said, it's not about how flashy your table looks or things like that, how well your voices can be, or how any of those kind of like outward metrics. Is your table having a good time? And with that, I've come to notice and to learn as I DM more and more from more and more people, that learning your players and figuring out how to tweak those little knobs of people's enjoyment make a game a whole lot more memorable than something like flashy terrain or something like that. Because they may not remember the map you built and put on the screen on the table, but they will remember that moment when you made their character, like put them in a situation where they had to make a decision, right? Or they were able to really show off who their character was.
Yeah.
Those are the things that people remember about games. So to all those people who are listening who have maybe thought about trying to DM, or maybe you don't have a DM around you, that's something to keep in mind. It's not necessarily about how well you can do funny voices or anything like that, but are you able to walk with your players and help them to tell a great story?
Yeah.
And if you can do that, which it's a whole lot easier than it sounds, then you can run a great game.
Yeah, one of my favorite reels that I've done on my Instagram is I saw the clip from Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
When he's talking with the One.
Yeah.
And she's explaining to him, you gain control by giving up control. You can't fight it. You have to just roll with it. And he was like, I get control by giving up control. That's nonsense. That makes no sense. And I was like, that's how you be a DM.
I was going to say.
I felt the same way stepping into the role of it, because I just had this really cool story and I really was like, I think this would be so much fun. And I felt so much pressure, and I realized all that pressure was being put on by myself.
Absolutely.
Not by anyone else. We hadn't even had the game for anyone to put pressure on me yet, right?
Yeah.
But I was so worried of getting that story across and feeling like I had to lead that narrative, when that's not the case at all.
No, yeah.
The best sessions I've ever had and the best narratives that have always come to place are always when I am being reactive to my players rather than trying to position and hold the carrot and dangle it in front of them and get them to go in a certain direction.
Right.
Yes.
And that is the key. And it helps so much. It reduces so much load of preparation because I don't have this fear anymore of what if they don't get this plot hook?
Yep.
What if they don't find this clue? What if they don't? And instead now it's just like, I'm so excited to
see where they go.
see where they want to go, what they want to do, and just react accordingly.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell them. And that's what I say in my session 0 is that what you guys want to do in this campaign is entirely up to you guys.
Yeah.
I have this wonderful, fantastic, terrible world, and it is up to you to decide where you guys want to go. You can follow any plot hook. Anything I dangle in front of you or anything that seems like it's being prompted, there is no incentive, there is no penalty whether or not you pursue it.
Right.
And it's the same thing. I also do that with, that's how I do my combat encounters too, is I don't balance those anymore. It's just based, again, reactively, the story and the environment and what's going on. Because you can make a combat encounter as balanced as possible and prepped, but if you're rolling like crap for your big bad and your players are rolling really high, that challenge rating is totally skewed.
Right. Yep.
And then the same thing, the opposite. You can put a gelatinous cube in front of them, and if you're rolling really high and your players are all rolling really low, it doesn't matter what level they are, they're going to get eaten. And I found that to be so much better. And then also by telling my players that too, of I'm not here to kill you guys. I'm also not here to save you guys either.
Right.
I am just here to react and explain what is happening around you with the decisions that you make.
Right. I am a neutral party deity.
Yes.
I'm just going to watch. You're going to drive this train. Yeah. And I think that's an important part. Like, I know we talked a little bit about Mercer, and, there's the Mercer effect that was out there that people talk about.
Yeah, that's not Mercer doing it. That's everybody else putting that perspective and that pressure and the expectation.
One of the big things that I always brought up with people, though, too, is like you're expecting to walk into somebody running a game like those guys that have millions of dollars now. Good on them. All these pretty people playing D&D made it cool for everybody else. Like, high five, guys. I'm down for it. But you also know that you got to notice that his players are invested in that. It's like, you want that kind of DM? You got to be that kind of player. And that's what makes it click. Like you said, it's not the fancy table. It's not the cool minis. It's not the mountains of Dwarven Forge. It's players and DMs that want to tell the story together. And the DM that's going to let them. I think that's a huge part of it. So we talked a little bit. We do a pre-interview for those of us that just think we wing this shit all the time.
Yeah, we had tacos. We had everything. It was great.
Yeah, we try to make our guests happy. I don't think we've had a guest that's left and been like, man, screw those guys.
I wish I could have ate more while I was there.
But we talked about in the pre-interview sheet, one of the things, and I think with this community, when we talk mental health, I think it is a huge factor within the community for a lot of reasons. I think that what we do, especially on the TTRPG side, can be some incredible therapy, whether you know what's going to happen or not. I know plenty of people, like we talk about this being a story. When I talk to people about games I played, I'm not talking to them about, hey, I was standing back and watching this movie and I thought this was really cool. It's an investment. I'm telling you the story from that first person perspective. And it is very different from people that have never done it before. And I invite you to try it. But mental health always comes up. And I know there are plenty of therapy sessions out there, like actual therapists that are using TTRPGs as a way to deal with anxiety, depression. PTSD is a big one. So, yeah, I know that you mentioned it. And full disclosure, I know that myself, I did 20 years in the Navy, like I said. When I left, and during and when I left, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and some PTSD. I also have been diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is not as bad as full bipolar. My swings aren't as bad for just those that are listening, but there are definitely days that are ups and downs and ups and downs, and that's a mental health cycle that happens. Experience for you dealing with this, just the TTRPG community?
Yeah, it's been really welcoming and really empathetic.
Yeah.
I think is a really good way to describe the TTRPG community. For me, I had a less than stellar childhood, and that left me with a lot of PTSD and depression.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, just genetics, depression, anxiety, and ADHD combined.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta love it. But I went unmedicated for most of my life. I didn't actually get diagnosed until about 3 years ago. And it's been amazing and life-changing. But I also learned a lot about it going through that process, which was really great. And I continue to just be very upfront with my players, especially, and let them know, like when we have a session 0, hey guys, I've got ADHD. There's going to be some days where my meds really help me, and there's going to be some days where my meds will have worn off, and I might, if I seem like I'm not engaged or if I seem distracted or anything else, do not take it personally.
Yeah.
But I also do my best to provide the best service and the best experience possible for them. And that really does help to put a little bit of that external pressure to stay focused. But at the same time, I tell them there are going to just be times where it's just tough, and that's okay. And the same thing to them. And I tell them one of the things that I love about it is that we just get to come here and go into this fantasy world and just forget about life, forget about all the stress, everything going on, and just be somewhere else or someone else for a couple hours. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
How helpful that is. Yeah. To just turn your brain off and from what you've got going on in your everyday life, and then just get to explore or be silly or just deal with things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that I have found definitely has helped tremendously with my mental health. But at the same time, it's also just so nice to just set that time aside and to know whenever during the week, I know I get to come and we get to sit at this table and we get to do this. And I don't, nobody's going to be asking me about bills, about work, about anything else in life. I just know I get to sit down with a group of people who just want to play D&D. And I honestly think that's one of the benefits that I will say for paid and pro GMing is for the players. People tell me, I've heard from many people, they're like, I can't believe people pay to be there.
We've heard that as
wants
well.
to do that, right?
Yeah.
But there's a couple advantages that I'll just
no.
ADHD side note segue off of. But a couple advantages. One, as a GM, my players are paying to be there. They have a vested interest to show up. And so sometimes that really helps you overcome with, if you're feeling really depressed or really anxious and you're like, I don't know if I want to be around people right now. Deep down, anybody who's played D&D, you never leave the table being like, I should not have showed up this week.
Yeah.
That was a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always have a great time. But knowing that there's money on the line, like people are expecting me to be there, right? I paid for the seat to be there. Helps people get out of the house sometimes or make that effort to go out and about and be in a public space to play D&D. And that also for me as a GM, that also means for me, I know my players are going to be there. I know I'm not prepping a game for nothing.
Yes.
I know I get to play D&D. That's the most exciting part. With all of my home games, the feeling always was, and it was no offense to my players, but it always was, sure, do we get to play D&D tonight? Not we get to play. It was, do we? Are we?
Yeah.
Is that still happening? You're always worried that dreaded day of text.
I think Chris put it best when we were talking about some people like, I don't know if I'd ever pay for somebody to DM. But you pay for stuff you love. You pay for these outings to go to the movies, to go to Busch Gardens. The price that you're paying to sit at a table for 3 hours is really good for what you're going to walk away from it. And I think what a paid DM, a service that they definitely provide, which really should be on the top of the list when we're talking advantages, is we actually get to slay the real BBEG of scheduling.
Yep.
And
100%.
Right?
Most casualties above any else.
Oh my God. I've had campaigns that went for, like, there was one that is still, it hurts even to think about it. I'm not going to lie. I might cry on this episode. But we were going for, we were over 2.5 years. And it started because I had played my first campaign with, she's always going to be my GM, Leslie. She played my first 5th edition campaign. I was like, hey, I want to learn to play 5th. And she was like, I'll run a game. And 32 people showed up. Oh, we're going to have to break this up. So I played through that game and she started another one. And she's, hey, you interested in playing another game? I'm doing one online and they need somebody that's a tank. And I was like, sure. And did a Oath of Treachery Paladin.
Nice.
It was a good my favorite character that I've played at all. And that it died because there was some inner drama that happened and they fizzle away. And it's like, it was, the session prior to it was just so like visceral and raw and amazing, and everybody walks away from it
ever left on a cliffhanger.
Oh, like I remember the last scene that I remember in my head is like we had infiltrated this like party ball.
You might be in hell.
Yeah,
this all might be a simulation. You might be just in perpetual hell right now.
Not even surprised.
Maybe I don't even exist. I don't know.
Hey, look, Charlie, we're not
We're not here to solve existential crises.
I'm having enough
right
trouble
now.
learning to sleep with a CPAP. I don't need this stuff too, all right? The last scene I remember, we snuck into this party and we had saved, like, oh, we found the children. One group was the party group, one group was the server group. And we snuck in, found kids. We're like, hey, we got to get them out. And my character he was from Kalashim, and his name was about, like, I pulled the Percy DeRollo, the whole thing. But he always had gone by nowhere. Or I had a list of names that I would give my DM every time I met somebody new, which was fantastic. It drove her nuts. But yeah, we found this girl we're looking for, and I was like, hey. And I was like, my name, and just spread it all out. But you can call me Nowhere. And everybody at the table, you just get that hit. And we get them all out, and we're loading them up. The castle's on fire, of course. And there's some guards coming out. It was me and the other fighter. Like, we both draw blades, and we're like, nobody gets near this cart. And that's where we ended it. And it was just like, and then that was the last session we ever played.
You're in hell right now.
Yeah.
I would hate that.
Welcome.
Yeah. But I know it's important really to talk about the mental health too, because when Gygax and Anderson put this game together, they were just dudes sitting in a basement wanting to kill goblins and making it a combat simulator. And now, as it has become more of a story, and again, it's not, oh, I watched this story. It's, I live this story, because we all see the thing happen in our minds. The mental health side of it comes into play. And have you, I don't know how your games run professionally, but emotionally, is there a slide? Do you try to keep it balanced, or it's just, this is where the players go?
Yeah, there are, of course, certain things we don't.
Yep.
Certain topics that we won't bring up or allow. But no, emotionally, the spectrum, again, it's wherever the players want to go. If they want to do something that's largely comical, by all means.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if they want to get engaged in heavy political drama, I have a bachelor's in political science. By all means, bring it on. Let's do it. I will happily feed that beast. If they want to go into something that's dark and gritty and emotional and test their wills and morals, happy to deliver on that.
Nice.
But it's really up to them.
Yeah.
And I've had in my games players and sessions that end in absolute tears, and ones that we are like, just our sides are killing us and we are from laughing so hard. And it's just it's wherever it wants to go. One of my campaigns, I will say, just to show that dichotomy, one of my campaigns is, I would say, they're more of a comical kind of group. You know?
Right.
Silly antics is really what their bread and butter. Somehow that ended up in a really intense situation where they were all trying to, like, Spider-Man meme each other of, no, I think you want to kill this orphan. And they're like, no, yes, but I know that you have a background as a rogue and you haven't killed anybody in a really long time. So maybe I'll leave you to kill this child. And I'm just watching my players, and I'm just like sitting there thinking in my head, no one's making you do this. Like,
right?
You guys, no, I have not at all set this up or planned at all that you guys would be sitting here with a 12-year-old orphan in the middle of you guys in this group, and you guys are all sitting there, blades drawn. All right, who's going to cut his throat? And I'm like, guys, how did we get here? And they're all stressed, and they're like, because they, as people, they're like, this is a dark. And so eventually someone did decide. And so very much before I majored in political science, I was majoring in biology. I can give a pretty descriptive detail of someone's head being severed between the joints. And that's very much what I described. And we definitely had somebody that was like, ugh, at the table.
Yep.
And everybody else was like, guys, why did we do that?
Yeah.
And really, it was great. It was really cool, though, to see this group branch out, who's been largely silly antics, to now really talking about, is this the kind of thing we want to be doing?
Yeah.
It was really cool. And it's come up in some of the sessions of, he had that coming.
Yeah.
He was a child.
Yeah.
What do you mean he had it coming?
Yeah.
But it's also funny because you are actively seeing these people, like, how do they cope with this? How do they
struggling with those moral questions?
Perceived moral dilemmas, I think, are one of my favorite things to watch happen at a table.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something that I, as a DM, instigated. Like, you just throw the pieces out there and then see what happens. But yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah. And it's great because, are they dealing with the same moral dilemmas? I surely hope that my players aren't killing orphans in their free time. But they're definitely dealing with things in their own life where they have to decide, how am I going to cope with that?
Yeah.
How am I going to live with this decision, live with this outcome? And it's a really safe place to be able to navigate those emotions, navigate those complex dilemmas of just simply what's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I tell my players too in our sessions here is that in this world, you are not a good person. You are not the hero. You are also not the villain. It just depends on simply how you want to be perceived and how you are actually perceived
Yeah.
by the people that are around you. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every war, there's people on both sides that believe they're the ones that are the right ones.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, that's what makes for a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to the mental health, one other thing I will say that's definitely a pro with paid GMing is that my players also know that they can show up no matter what is going on.
Yeah.
Running late from work, running late from dropping their kids off at practice, running late from the grocery store, whatever's going on. Car broke down, they had to get a ride or something. They know they can show up and they have nothing. I've got the dice, I've got the minis, I've got the mat, I've got I tell them, make your character on D&D Beyond
Yeah.
in my campaign. And then that way you show up, I've got character sheets ready to go where I can just quickly write down all your stats. And there you go. You have your reference for the game. If you don't have, if your phone battery died or you couldn't bring a tablet, you
Right.
know, I will take care of everything. All I need you to do is just show up.
Yep.
And that is just such a relief to know, like, every week I just get to go. And the other thing too with paid jamming is a lot of times these people are at the table, they don't know each other from anything else.
Right.
And that's sometimes can be a downfall with family and friend groups, is that everybody comes to one person's house. You know, somebody feels the pressure to clean up and make everything look good, or somebody's like, should I bring something?
Yep.
Or, oh, worried about, just all kinds of stuff. And just the social dynamics of, being with friends or family while also playing D&D. Whereas this, we're in a neutral environment.
Yeah.
For me, I run them in a game store. Some people run them at a restaurant or a bar or
Right.
brewery, but I run it in a game store, neutral environment. Everybody comes there. I have a Discord that everybody communicates in, so nobody's engaging with their social media or sharing any personal information. Everybody just knows I get to show up at a table, play a game that everyone is equally invested in playing.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about anything going on outside of this table.
I love it. Yeah.
And we just get to shut the world away, truthfully.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just such a great feeling. And I know it's a great escape for a lot of players, and especially even for myself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Because, again, you got to be invested, too. But when we do, like I've told you, we do a learn to play game. We bring new people in. We do the same thing. It's like, leave all your stuff here. Don't take anything home. Don't worry about that. We'll fill everything out here. So you just show up. That's all we need you to do. And I know that's a huge relief off of people.
Yeah.
And especially if I'm doing this as I'm paying somebody, like, I feel like that's an extra. Oh, yeah. Again, this is what I'm going to do with my free time and what I'm going to pay to do. Yeah, absolutely. So your homebrew and your world building.
Yes.
This has been going on for a while. Real quick, do you have a top celebrity DM?
Oh, gosh.
Top three?
Yeah, that's still tough. First and foremost, it is Matt Mercer.
Okay, fair.
I am a big Critical Role fan.
Yep.
So
I can see.
I'm definitely a little. Yep. I got the vest.
Yep.
I'm a little biased, in that regard. Absolutely, when I'm talking about them, but it's because of all those aspects that I really have a fondness for what they do, and especially for what Matt does.
Yeah.
But I really like Matt's range, again, like I was talking about with my campaigns, to engage in silly antics and also to get really dark and gritty when it warrants it.
Yeah.
That being said, another one of my favorites for a similar reason is Brennan Lee Mulligan.
I was going to say he's my number one, but yeah.
I fell in love with him particularly when it came to the Exandria Unlimited.
Yes.
When him doing that 4-part series and just showing the range of his storytelling and how he perceived the emotions and the personality and also the motivations of those NPCs and what would be their focus or their angle at things. And I was just absolutely drawn. I've rewatched that 3 times because it's just a great story. Awesome. What a great place, a great history. But Brennan I love how he brings a lot of those characters to life and really personifies them.
Yeah.
And gosh, my third, that's tough. I don't know. Like I said, there's
just so many good ones. I juggle this around a lot. I think Mercer's definitely top 5. Maybe he might even be top 3, but Definitely Brennan is probably the favorite one that I watch. And I really like Deborah Ann Wall.
Yeah.
I think I like her a lot because I've heard she's a pusher when she's on set. She's like, you know what we should do as a crew? Let's play D&D in our free time. Relics and Rarities show that she did for a little while where they were bringing like a new guest in every every session to play. Like there was a 3 that, were her players, and then this would come in. I love that idea. I love that. Let's bring new people in. I didn't realize Kevin Smith had never played D&D until then.
I know.
Right? It was like, that feels weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just curious. So your world.
Yeah, my world. So hopefully coming to a Kickstarter, trying to manifest it this year.
Got it.
But it's Adventures After an Arcane Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
The premise of it is I've always been a fan of post-apocalyptic environments.
Right.
But one of the things that kind of I get bummed out by is how a lot of movies and a lot of stories really silo themselves in one setting.
Yeah.
And it was when combined with that personal love and attraction to that kind of storytelling, it was when I was reading the Dungeon Master Manual, and it says in there, if you're going to build a homebrew world, pick a story or a movie that you like and build your world around that. And I was like, but that's not realistic. Look at our world. It's not homogenous. It's not one thematic element. So I started to think, well, what if, just like it says and how a lot of people talk about when they say with world building is just start small, start with one place. So I started off with the idea of, you know what I really like? Hunger Games, Divergent. Those series are really cool.
Right.
But again, the thing that bums me out with them is they almost never talk about what's beyond the wall, what's beyond the other side. Hey, super cool what's going on with Hunger Games, terrifying, awful, funny, whatever. But I want to know what's happening on the other side of the planet. These 12 districts are not the only districts. This is not the only land in this world.
That's what happened to this country. Got it. But I don't know if you know where the globe looks like.
Yeah. I want to get, a movie that's about the other people going like, what the fuck is wrong with those people?
Yes.
They're literally sending children in to fight each other. What is to settle their political problems? Like that's horrible politics. That's not good
at all.
I mean, I would love to see that kind of element and that difference. And so that's where I started. So I was like, okay, Earth, roughly 5 centuries in the future after did I say 5 centuries? 500 years. So you can edit that out.
That's fine. Don't worry, I got this. Have you heard us?
Also,
I make us sound good all the time. You're sitting here, you're like, what the hell?
I'm also joking when I say, please feel free to keep it in. And people are like, what's happening to him? Conan O'Brien is, I love when he says, I'm having a cerebral event.
And there are a lot.
Yeah. That is the definition of ADHD. But yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to start with the world. And so I started with the United States of Armistice.
Okay.
Which is a conglomerate of 5 Western societies that, when fractured from the war, because whenever you have if you were to imagine, and depending again how meta or how much you want to apply to it, when you think about it, large societies are going to fracture when there's global warfare.
Yes.
Right. But also just in the size of them, a lot of them are just going to be fractured in general, geographically. So that was the idea, is that 5 of them came together, created a society. And the idea is in present day, they did wall themselves off. And the story that they've said is it's safer in here.
Yeah.
There's nothing beyond the wall. Or if there was, certainly nothing better than what we've got here. So there's just no reason to go there. But of course, there's all this history that led up to that because it wasn't always that way for 500 years.
Right.
And so that's what started from there. And so then the Earth, I have all kinds of incredible kingdoms and small villages and settlements, ruins that are there. My favorite is every so often when my players in a campaign will be able to find a somewhat preserved abandoned mall and getting to talk about that and what that looks like. Because the other thing too is in my homebrew world, because it is Earth, there's a couple of really cool, unique aspects of it that combine so well with D&D. First and foremost is any surviving relics of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Hey, dancing lights are pretty cool. What else is cool? A flashlight.
Yeah.
Serves very similar purposes, but without having concentration or having to expel magic, or anything like that. And it's really cool when you get to combine sometimes these really simple things, that trivial things we take for advantage,
Right.
and then you compare it scale to scale with spells or magical items, and it's wow, like we really are like, you have people that you've been in a campaign where somebody's like fiending for some boots of elven kind, and then you get to be like, here are some really nice sneakers.
Yeah.
They're in the name, and they're like, wow, that's so clever. If you took it as a D&D perspective, you would have the halflings being like, and dwarves being like, this is absolutely amazing. They're called sneakers. That's brilliant. It's in the name.
I love it. I love it. So not so much steampunk, but like post. It feels like the whole setting was written by an artificer that just took it to the next step.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's magic, but also look what I can do with this. And I love that setting.
And then on top of that, what I also imagined too was you have a planet, billions of people going through some of the worst tragedies for centuries. Radiation, chaotic magic, all kinds of chaos going on. That would invoke so many gods to come and say, I am here to answer your prayers. I am here to grant your deepest desires if you pledge your oath to me. Imagine how many warlocks were born during that whole first century of warfare. But because of that, the way I imagine it is over 5 centuries, Earth becomes like this lightning bug zapper, that it's now just this glowing place of potential for the entire material plane. The flip side of that is, by putting Earth on the material plane, it makes all 50 years of D&D completely canon.
Yeah.
And third-party extensions and everything else you can think of. So that's one of the other advantages is I get to tell my players for my homebrew world is there are no limits when you come and join this campaign. You can make any character, any race, any species, any class, any subclass, feats, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Bring it.
Yeah.
And I want them to, because also by doing so, a lot of times they help me flesh out parts of this world and beyond Earth and the material plane that I haven't even had a chance to work on just yet, because I've been working on various other things. And it's been fantastic, and it's made it so much more dimensional by bringing that. And then it also gives them an opportunity to really give some ownership and bring into this.
Oh, yeah.
And how that affects things.
I like that. Like, I want to come play a campaign if I could quit traveling for work.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Charlie, we're gonna be watching the website. We'll be there.
Please.
Miniature terrain design on a budget.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely one advantage I will say personally I am very grateful for with pro GMing is I have a budget now.
Yeah.
I have a budget based on my games that I can get new minis and new terrain and new stuff. Before that, when I was running games for my friends and family, my budget was $20 a month.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Which my go-to and my recommendation is for a lot of GMs on a budget is Ender Toys Terrain. They are a really great company based out of Las Vegas, and they do 3D printed terrain, and it's really good quality, really durable. But the thing is, they print everything the same color, same quality. And so if you don't paint your terrain, if you don't even have either the money for the paints or the time for painting, you can spend $20, get a set, a pretty decent amount of terrain for that amount of money, but it's all modular and it's all to scale the same way. And so you do that for 6 months.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you now have a mountain.
Right.
You have a lot to work with. And I love that.
And
especially because it's such good quality and there's nice enough detail to it, but it's still so durable. Mm-hmm. You can use it over and over again. And if you don't paint it, I mean, it really helps with theater of the mind. I mean, everything's going to collaborate and mesh well together because it's just enough detail to really stick out, but it's not so much detail that you're looking at and you're like, that is painfully two opposite entire things.
Everything's green screen.
Yeah.
Use your imagination. Yeah.
Yeah. But otherwise, the other thing I did was, thankfully, with a little bit of an artistic background, was I got really creative with cardboard. You can do so much with cardboard and hot glue.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would go dungeon diving. I would go
That's what happens, people.
diving.
This stuff takes over your life. It's good. It's cool.
It's all in my vernacular. But I would go dumpster diving out behind Best Buy and get a bunch of big chunks of styrofoam, cardboard boxes, and just take them home and break them down, turn them into new things, and you can just create all kinds of stuff. And then it doesn't matter what happens to it because all it cost you was a little bit of your time and 30 cents worth of hot glue. Cool.
Yeah, worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. You don't need the flashy table, you don't need all that stuff. But I think as a DM, for me, it is fun to be able to present when they come around the table. Like I was telling you, my GM, Leslie, at one point during the campaign, we came in and on the table was this 12-story pillar, like complete with like ladder wells, and it was fantastic. It was a great session, and she built it all out of cardboard. It wasn't Dwarven Forge. It wasn't anything fancy. It was hers. It was just hers that she built did the same thing, grabbed a bunch of cardboard. Yeah, and your players will love it and they will appreciate it. Yeah. And I think that's, again, the best part is when you have a player come back and be like, hey, when are you going to run again? Or just, hey, I had a blast. Yeah. This was great. You know? Yeah. So
and it's really nice. And again, I tell people all the time, especially when they ask, how do I pro GM? You don't have to have the best of the best. You just have to have a story.
Yeah.
Even if you can't craft your own terrain, that's okay. You don't have to rely on that all the time.
Yeah.
You can just come together and have fun.
Theater of the mind, and it's still good.
But like I have a baby grand piano that I made out of cardboard, and my players, like, that's one of their favorite things whenever that goes down on the table.
Yeah.
But also, I have flip side. Thankfully, with Rogue Game Masters, Chris has a great Dwarven Forge collection.
Yeah, he does.
And it is a ton of fun to get to play around with that.
Yeah.
He also has some of the best big miniatures.
I've been in his office. It is fantastic.
It is so good. Twice now I've been able to drop a Trask on a table, and it's so funny. Once was at Tower, and another was at Voodoo Brewing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you put those things on a table, and you can just sit and just people watch for 30 seconds, and you will just see so many people's eyes like just double taken. The hell? And people just pointing, and they're like, oh my God, what's that over there? Another time was I got to use an ancient red dragon miniature that he has.
I've seen that. Was
so funny. Not a miniature, it's huge. 3-foot wingspan. Yeah. And getting to just put that down on the table. One, my players' reaction when they like show up at the game and they're like,
what the hell is that?
Charlie, you know that we're level 4, right? I'm like, no, I'm fully aware. Yeah, absolutely. That's there.
Yeah.
And then again, other people, when they walk by and they're just like, oh, they're playing what the hell?
That the sculpts and the artwork is enough to get, the non-D&Ders involved. Yeah.
And same thing, like whenever he has the Dwarven Forge collection, one of my favorites is that the lava and the volcano rocks.
Yep.
And he has the light up panels that go underneath for it. Dude, that is, look, absolutely. You can definitely DM on a budget, but there is something so cool when you do get to flip the lights on that and all this lava just starts glowing and all that terrain. And I will say, Dwarven Forge, it is having my hands on it so much in so many games, and I've had the privilege to play around with it. It is very expensive, but there's a reason for it. That stuff is so well sculpted.
You're getting what you pay for,
and it's so fucking durable.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Chris, he told me, no, you can't break it. You're fine. He's just, I was like, because the first time I was in his office and I was like taking some, I was like very like careful and just being very gentle with it. And he was like, nah, dude. And he like threw one across the room and he's, you're fine. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's totally good. And so now at Mike, that was actually when I met you guys at the Weather Dragon Inn.
Yes.
For the second time I was there. The first time I got invited to come and run a game there.
Nice.
And which was also fun. Holler back to the beginning of our interview. When you asked about experience when it comes to D&D, not as many years of experience with D&D when it comes to many other people. However, getting to play from 1 to 20, I do have a lot more experience than
definitely.
Some people that have played for more than 10 or 20 years. One of which is I've also now become notorious for TPKs. And the reason is I don't run TPKs again. It's not the goal. They
definitely.
happen. It is up to you if you don't want to engage with something. And it is up to you if you do want to engage with something that is above your weight class. That being said, I also just really like running one-shots.
Yeah.
That's a potential. There's actually something to be fearful of. The other thing is, with that one in particular, that was actually the goal. Speaking of emotions of people at the table, that was the goal, was a TPK.
Yeah.
How do I create a one-shot where the players are actively trying to TPK?
Yeah.
And that was
like Blaze of Glory.
Basically what happened was if they didn't kill themselves or get themselves killed, in a way that they could control,
Yeah.
then their bodies and potentially their souls would be infected and taken and corrupted. And so it's either you have the afterlife with the deity that you hope you have, or the chance to be, brought back somewhere by someone you trust, or now you're gonna serve these people. And that was something that the players really loved and everything. But that was something, again, I got to come and do that. And I asked Chris, can I borrow some of your dwarven forge? He goes, yeah. And I put all that stuff in a couple bags, hauled it in the car across the state line. And sure enough, it held up so freaking well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It is some good stuff. But same thing with cardboard. And the other thing, if it breaks, I can easily fix that with some hot glue.
I was going to say, yeah. This was cheap and easy.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit cons. You said you were hoping to get to your first con this year, like first big con.
First big con, yeah. So we had talked as being in Hampton Roads. There's a couple of really cool local cons here: Tidewater Con, Anime Con.
You want to play a game called Guess Who's Got a Table on Artist Alley? It's us, just in case you're. Come see the Dap Reap. It'll be cool. Trust me. Sorry, go ahead.
It absolutely will be. One I got to go to that was actually D&D themed and tabletop themed was last year at Williamsburg, which was a Bird Quest.
We missed it because we didn't catch the timing. Sucks for us, but yes, next year I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. It was a ton of fun. It was. So I've been to cons before, as just a fan and going to it, but it wasn't explicitly with the goal of D&D or TPRPG. It was just overall, just the geek and nerd fandom and community. That was my first time going for a con for D&D, and that was so cool. Got to be on a panel, got to talk to some people, had a table, got to talk to people as they came up there, and ran a professional game for 8 people at the con, which was a great experience. And I really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun, and it was a great way to meet a lot of people. And so I was like, I want to really do more of this.
Yeah.
That was a goal. And so my wife and I, we looked at found a website that actually keeps a log of all the D&D and TTRPG cons in the world, separated by country and by state. And I was like, this makes it a lot easier to figure out what's going on. Looked at all that and everything else, and I applied to a couple of them to professionally GM at, and I just got accepted at Awesome Con. That's going to be in DC.
Oh, yes.
Like I said, Bird Quest is the only one of my experience that I've done that on a scale of for TTRPG.
Yeah.
And it was a great con, but it was their first year. So it was just a couple hundred people.
Sure.
Now, Awesome Con this year is going to have people like Orlando Bloom and Liv Tyler.
Yeah. Nice. I saw that.
What? That was just absolutely wild to see. And I was like, wow, I get to be there this year. So that's going to be really cool. I'm very excited for it.
I think, I hope you have a lot of fun. Like I said, we went as regular, just like, hey, we're going to con. Hell yeah. And then somebody, we got to have the exhibitor badge, or, you're going to be part of the con and getting to see, peek behind that curtain in a big one.
It's so cool.
Much. Yeah.
It's been great going to different cons and being and cosplaying and everything and going there, for Pokemon or, for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or for video games or whatever. But yeah, to be like a part of the con.
Yeah.
To be there before it all sets up and everything else. It's like that magic of in-person D&D at the table. They're just... wow. I was like, that was a really cool experience to be a part of. I'm stoked. I'm from Northern Virginia. So I do have a fondness for DC and a respect for it. And that is just such a wonderful melting pot of people and cultures. And I'm so excited to see that at a con level and all the people that will be coming out for it. Really excited to be a part of that one. Hoping to hear from some of the others. We'll see. And hopefully getting to attend some others. But at the very least, if all I get to go to is Awesome Con this year, I will be a very happy person.
I get that. Yeah.
Robbie Damon, if you're listening to this, I know you're going to be a guest over there. Please feel free to come and be at my table.
Hell yeah. Hey, we do shameless plugs all the time. Have I told you about my best friend, Keith Baker? Good dude.
Yeah.
Good dude.
Yeah.
Awesome. Charlie, thanks so much for coming on, man. We have had an absolute blast getting to talk to you. Is there anything that we missed or anything you want to put out? I know we talked about the Ink GM on all of your socials. So if people want to look you up there, is there anywhere else you want to point them to or anything that we missed?
Really, truthfully, what I can say is listen to this podcast. There's a lot of other really great podcasts out there too. And a lot of really great people in this space.
Yeah.
And I try to engage with them and promote them on my social media when I can. Things have been pretty busy the last couple months, but hopefully going to be, again, doing some more collaborations and posting some more stuff. But I try to give shout outs to some of the wonderful people out there when I can. It's a great place to find some. I know I've found so many incredible small businesses and creators just by being engaged in this space. And I've been so grateful to meet so many. But yeah, there's all that. The biggest one I would have to say is, though, my fellow friends and GMs for our podcast, Story Crafters. And that just came out of a very simple thing of, you look at a lot of content online, and a lot of it, when it comes to GMs, is very based on like how to GM, how to be a good player, how to have good interactions with your players, that kind of stuff. But not so much GMs just getting to sit around and talk like this.
Yes.
And just talk about how things go at your tables this week, guys. What kind of lore do we want to talk about? And that's just what we do. And that's just really nice of,
I like that. Yeah.
Be able to bring that. And it's just a nice, cozy listen to, just like your guys' podcast, which is one of the reasons I wanted to be on it. I was like, heard Chris and Mike on there, and I was like, listen to some other episodes. I was like, these guys are really cool. I like them a lot. And they're local. Come on. Let's get together.
People in Virginia Beach. Hell yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, again, thanks for coming on. We've had a blast. Listeners, if you've been with us for any amount of time, how we do with guests, so hang out, and we're going to give you a couple of cool ideas for maybe an NPC at your next table.
Man, did you see me though? 'Cause I sure put on the show. I'm dancing on the tables and I must say I got a taste for flipping out. I'm glancing at the haters and I know they wish they did the shit I did tonight.
It feels like we haven't got to do this segment in far too long. And this is one of our favorite segments that we've had on the show for a long time. Charlie, when we have guests on board, we always love to hear about your favorite character, because if you have played for any amount of time, you have a favorite character that you've played. It's a guarantee with everyone that I've talked to.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about your favorite character in Know Your Character.
Yeah. As mentioned earlier in the interview, I did have the privilege to get to play a campaign from level 1 to 20. And that is by far my favorite character I've ever played. His name was Gerrard Bhaseth.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as a human paladin.
Okay.
Ended up as a soul possessing a leonine body at the very end at level 20, and had made an arrangement with the Raven Queen and Bahamut in order to possess said body to come back in order to save the world.
Nice.
And yeah, so
No pressure.
no pressure. But yeah, my character was just, we started out level 1. Gerrard was just a humble villager in a farming family with his 2 best friends. And they decided that they wanted to spend a couple of years exploring the world a little bit.
We should adventure.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, let's go see a big city. Let's go learn a little bit more. Maybe we can find some things to bring back to our village and help our families, help our farms, help anyone in the process. Maybe make a little bit of coin so we can bring some good stuff back.
I love that your story started, and it doesn't seem like anybody's parents are dead
I was
yet.
about to say, nobody's parents died. They went on an adventure for good reasons.
This
like
sounds way too
story.
wholesome. Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. So system was he played in?
5th edition.
Okay.
It was 5th edition. And that's how it started out. It was great.
Yeah.
However, I was the paladin, so I was the shield, the tank, the big melee hitter. I had a wizard and a druid in the rest of the party. My healing also came quite a bit in hand, especially with the wizard.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that being said, I died a lot. Sometimes just for a few rounds. And 3 times completely dead.
Like
And
full resurrection dead?
full resurrection. First time I died, came back, rolled on the table as you do for potentially for a different species. To see what you come back as. And I was level 1, started out paladin, ended up following Bahamut by level 3, and came back as a dragonborn.
Ooh.
That was
That-
trippy.
I was going to say, that feels divinely inspired.
Oh, it was. And straight up.
Yeah. Yeah.
D100, and that's what it came. And I think the odds, I remember exactly now, because the second time I died, I came back as a tiefling. And if I remember correctly, Dragonborn is on one end of the D100 scale and Tiefling's on the other. And I rolled high and low in both, and my DM was like, maybe you should have been a cleric. But I really wanted to commit to the idea that my character coming back from the dead, it wasn't just this simple, I'm back.
Right. Yeah.
I really wanted it to take a toll. I really wanted there to be some drawbacks, some things I had to work on. And that was a lot of fun. And so one of the things that I incorporated very early on was just when it came to anytime we had a meal or something, as a Dragonborn, it was just like, no, nothing really tastes the same as my human compatriots are, and what I used to like and what I thought I liked, I didn't like. And then by the second time I died and came back as a tiefling, I was starting to have a literal identity crisis. People would be talking or referencing the tiefling, and I, in canon, would just be like, huh? I'm not a tiefling.
Oh.
What? I'm a tiefling.
I love that because especially with campaigns, like when we deal with death in D&D, if you do get to come back, I always feel like if you have been shuffled off your mortal coil and you get bounced back, there's no way your brain doesn't go, wait a damn minute.
Yeah.
If it's not your brain, your soul has been touched. So absolutely love that. Yeah. The third time I'm back, oh yeah, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Got it.
And it was a lot of fun. And that has influenced how my homebrew system is. I have a table now that my players roll on after the first time they've died. First Revivify is free.
Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one.
It's that everybody has a near-death experience.
Sure.
You had yours. The magical equivalent, at least.
Yeah.
You did die, but that's your near-death experience, right? But after that, I have them roll on a table. And I like to do a penalty and a bonus kind of system. Not in a sense of how typically I think a lot of GMs will do like a boon and a curse or some kind of penalty. Instead, what I like to do is have them roll on the table. And sometimes just magic itself is just not always perfect, right? The idea that every person who's casting magic is perfect at every spell the same way everyone else is, kind of hard to believe.
Right.
Or just the fact, if you look at any of the spells, they always say, they're like, a lot of them, if they bring you back from the dead, they don't necessarily heal something that if it's completely severed or gone, it doesn't regrow it. So there's always a chance. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe something when, the cleric came over to cast Revivify, thought all your pieces were there, but didn't know that your foot was not actually in your boot. And so one of the things I like to do in a perfect example is I'll say roll on the table and your character comes back and turns out one of your eyes had a piece of shrapnel or a cut that seemed superficial, but the magic wasn't able to fix it. And now you're blind in one eye.
Yeah.
And you have this scar. And so the penalty is you now have a disadvantage on perception check until you get that. If you ever want to get that healed, you're going to have disadvantage on perception. But flip side, now you can play, and I give them, you now have an advantage on how you want, and it's all on how you want to play it. But you have an advantage now on deception or
intimidation, insight,
persuasion.
Sorry. I was working my way through them.
Yeah. ADHD.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, now you have a permanent advantage on that. And it's just a matter of how you want to play it. Do you want to play it sympathy-wise and try to get people to feel bad for you and persuade, into what you're thinking? Or do you want to try to use it as like, you don't want to know how I got this scar kind of thing and try to intimidate into it? You'll have advantage on it because you have this physical manifestation of that to back up on. And that's how I played Gerrard.
Right.
Was that same way. And he was, even though he came back from the dead and had a new body, maybe he didn't have the physical scars, but he definitely had the mental and emotional scars.
Yeah.
And, by that second time, that third body, he really started to struggle with the fact of not, at that point, I made it like a thing. I was like, hey, if I'm not here, I can't make it to a session and the GM's going to run my character. I was like, his goal is always going to be to heal his allies.
Yeah.
At this point, he very much feels that pain is temporary. It's going to suck, but it's only going to suck for so long.
Yeah.
Fuck it. I'd rather not my allies to suffer. And will always use all of his lay on hands points and all of his spell points to heal on them, and will save just one or two lay on hands points in the event that somebody goes down.
Right.
And he wants to keep them from having to go what he went through.
Yeah.
And so that's how it always was. Before it would just be like, all right, how many do I have? 30? Just dump the 30. But then, like, by that third time, he was like, no, I don't want anybody else to go through what I'm feeling, this horrible disassociation and literal body dysmorphia. Like, I don't identify with this and just feeling out of place and uncomfortable all the time. So he would always keep one or two lay on hands points just in case. So not in case we were out of spell slots for Revivify or anything else, he could just come and just boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he would, and that would be the other thing. If an ally went down by that third time, it didn't matter if, there was a literal have to jump into the dragon's mouth to get his ally out of there and heal them and get eaten.
Yeah.
That's what he would do. And sure enough, that's what ended up happening by the time he was level 19.
Yeah.
Got killed again, this time eaten by a kraken. There was no body left.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that had to be made, the pitch with Bahamut.
Yeah.
Getting up there and Bahamut's, you served your purpose, you're here. And he was like, no.
Yeah.
Send me back.
I've got
You
work
have
to do.
And he was like, I would, but I can't. I can't just, that's not my thing. There are spells for a reason. You have to have a connection. You have to have a mortal body to go into. And my GM was like, it was really cool. We were role playing all of this and everything. He's roll persuasion. And it was like, not to see if Bahamut would find a way to do it or anything, but just a matter of to really just convince him, like, everybody wants to go back.
Yeah.
How much do you really feel your need is on the material plane?
Yeah.
And so I rolled above 20, and he was like, all right. Bahamut looks at you and says, let's go find the Raven Queen. And that's what we did.
I love the let's deal with the god segment. Yes. Yeah.
And that was really cool. We got to have this whole, him and I met up and, we role played that for an hour and everything. It was so much fun. And went to the Raven Queen and Raven Queen was like, oh, sure. We'll do this.
Yeah.
Because I want a favor from Bahamut in my back pocket.
I was going to say, yeah.
But the Raven Queen had a twisted sense of humor. Put me into a Leonin's body, but not just any Leonin. One who was one of the cultists of Tiamat.
Nice.
And so I decided, I was like, if he was like, so that's what the Raven Queen would have done. I was like, okay, cool. But here's the thing, man. I think I would really like to roleplay, if you'll let me, if we can create some kind of a mechanic where that Leonin will take over the consciousness of Gerrard and they will occasionally fight for dominance. And there will be times where he comes up in the forefront and then Gerrard will come up over him. And that was so much fun.
I love that.
So much fun to play as. And it really, at the end of it, it was really cool because I got to end the campaign with all of my players. And that was, the agreement was, Raven Queen was like, there has to be a finality to this. I can't just let you inhabit someone's body forever. Right. There has to be a definitive period. And so it was like, okay, our big bad was this guy who essentially, he was a vampire who, your Curse of Strahd kind of aspect, but he was actually teamed up with a lot like your, what's the Anti-Justice League? I can't remember right now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
The League of Villains?
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's okay. I have a
killing
correction girl to come in and fix this.
There we go. Just do a blank overlay of it is the League of Villains.
We dig her in and she's like, they're idiots. This is what they're talking about. And then we ding her out. It works good.
The Justice League has faced off against several named groups of villains. Here the boys are probably talking about the Legion of Doom, which was created for the challenge of the Super Friends in 1978. Throughout their comics, they have also tangled with groups such as the Injustice League, the League of Villainy, and the Crime Syndicate of America. So the guys aren't idiots, but they are riddled with ADHD.
But yeah, it was that kind of thing. And so it was all these big bads that were working together to overthrow and rule the world together. But all of them had their own things that they wanted to do, of course, and were fighting with each other. And so that gave an avenue for us to go and simultaneously kill each of them and dethrone them. And so that was the thing. It's like, we have to get to that.
Yeah.
And so by level 20, we had one left, which was the vampire.
Right.
That was the one we had been fighting with for so long. And he ended up just getting more powerful because as we were taking out big bads, those were essentially his competition.
Yeah.
And he was coming in and profiting off of that. So it led to this big, epic level 20. And by that time, when Gerrard finally got to defeat him with his allies, he was able to look at them and say, goodbye.
Yeah.
And because I had gone through this whole experience and Gerrard didn't feel attached anymore to the material plane because he didn't even have a body that he felt attached to specifically at that point. But up until then, he had already in a way signed off on adventuring throughout the material world. He wanted to now adventure in the afterlife with Bahamut and explore, that realm. And exists there beyond. You know,
Yeah.
at that point, he's gotten a taste of it. Because that would be the other thing too, is those spells, they always say, if the soul is willing.
Yes.
And
all
so
of
he
them.
would ask, he's like, you've been a very faithful paladin. Like, you go to Mount Celestia, where Bahamut is, and you're there. And Bahamut says, you know, welcome, my son, my warrior. Thank you for your service. And he would be like, and then you get this pull, do you go back? And it was always like, he has to make sure his friends are okay. And so now knowing that his friends are okay, all these greatest evils are gone. His friends are strong enough to live without him, especially the wizard. He's like, okay, I can leave the material plane for good.
I like that. I like
And that was Gerrard. So I imagine that he would be, if you wanted to use him as an NPC, very simply put, I think he would be a great thing if you were to have, especially like a cleric or a paladin, somebody who is invoking deities or whatever and asking for help.
Yeah.
Sends the soul of this level 20 paladin.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't come back as level 20, he's still going to come back with all that experience of everything he's been through. And your GM, the GM can then play him as this really savvy support character.
Oh, yeah.
Who can be like, let me tell you, you guys are worried about a Hydra. Let me tell you about being eaten by a Kraken. And did he get eaten by that Kraken and lost his entire body and had to inhabit? He did. But did he kill the Kraken when that happened as well from the inside? He did.
Yeah.
He did kill that Kraken.
I like that.
Died with the Kraken, but he did kill that Kraken.
What setting were you guys using? As
It
far as
was a homebrew setting.
oh, was it okay?
Yeah, it was
okay.
his homebrew setting, which I absolutely love. Shout out to my GM, to Mick. He was absolutely phenomenal. And it was a really great setting. And I brought a bunch of stuff here for reference if we talked about any of my homebrew settings. And the one thing I didn't bring, and now I wish I had, was I did write, because he was in my campaign for my homebrew setting, and I wrote a poem that they went into a tavern at session 20, and a bard was just singing this thing. And he slowly realized he's son of a bitch. He's talking about my world and the stuff that they did in the campaign. And I made a little like poem ballad about our group and what the adventures that they went through and everything. But I think that would just be a really cool. I think Gerrard would just be a great support character that you could just drop in, just inhabit some random body. And then whenever he's no longer needed, he goes back. Part of this service between either Bahamut or the Raven Queen or somebody else, it just knows there is a legend of a paladin who inhabited someone to save the world.
I like
Maybe
that.
we can bring him back. And then when he's done, goes away. And then, of course, what does that person want? To get the hell away from whatever invoked that. Of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I love that part because now that person's gone. They're like, I'm in charge again? Oh, hell no. No one, no
Outta
more
here.
of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why we started this kind of segment, because that's perfect. That character that comes back. I like the idea of him being a reoccurring character if you have a long enough campaign and they meet him as a
That's where
human.
my brain was
You're right.
going.
And
Yeah.
then he strolls into the bar of this dragonborn and it's like, why is he looking at us? It's like, all right, I'm going to have to explain something to you guys. This is what you know. Like, prove it. And he's there as a dragonborn. Oh, okay, this is the same guy. And then he walks in as a tiefling. The same, you get the same reactions. Like, it happened again. I just need you to be cool with this. And that NPC steps in through the campaign.
Yeah, I also like the idea of that kind of fighting with like his current body and understanding that like this is who he is now, even though like, psychologically it just doesn't click. And having an NPC where the party gets close to them and realizes that that's how you can introduce these topics of death in the game and how that can really affect a player character. And I like him being introduced in that as well. But I definitely like the idea of when you talk about level 20 characters, you mentioned it when we were talking in the interview before, not very many people get there, right? Most games, I think they said end around like 10 to 12 at most.
Yep.
And that's if they go for a good amount of time. To have a character that is that powerful, you're talking about cosmic level power on a player character. Yeah. I think something like a legend about this paladin that existed and some of the stories like that would be just whispers of that. Maybe he is an avatar of Bahamut or something like that does show up. I would almost consider using him as a character too for like when your cleric of your party goes for like divine intervention, right?
Yeah.
This is who shows up and like, all right, here's what I got for you kind of thing. But even just, I think it's a really cool idea when you're talking about legends and stuff. I'm a big fan of the podcast Lore. And
Yeah.
right, he talks a lot about how like legends start as one thing, but as time goes on and people keep telling that story, the story changes and
Yes.
it becomes something else. I think as a DM, taking this NPC and crafting that legend of, obviously he was an amazing paladin, sacrificed his life for his friends, bargained with the gods to come back. How would his legend have changed as that story gets told?
Yeah.
Right, over decades, over centuries? What happens to that story, and does that story affect like what form he takes or what he looks like when he comes back to the material plane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And always remember, kids, level 20 characters can mess with multiple planes on just a regular Tuesday morning. So that's the kind of power we're talking about.
100%. When you talk about legends, I always love the idea that they change over time. And that was something with Gerrard, is like, he's known for this, sure. But there's so many skeletons in his closet, so many things over that campaign that he is ashamed of or wishes that he could have changed or done differently. And I do that in my homebrew setting. And one of the things you just reminded me of is the United States of Armistice. They have that wall, right? Yeah. The wall didn't go up for 200 years. It had to be built.
Right.
And then they sealed themselves off. And when they did that, it started off with, we're building this wall because the rest of the world is so dangerous and so difficult and violent to live in. This is how we're going to protect ourselves. We have to build the wall to protect ourselves, to save us from everything there. The world is dangerous beyond the wall. Then as the wall went up, then it became the world is better within the wall. And then it became, in the present time, where a lot of my campaigns take place, it is, there's nothing beyond the wall. This is all that's left of the world.
Yeah.
And because they can't leave, and life is fairly okay for some, and even for those that it's worse, all they know and have been told forever is that there's nothing beyond the wall. It's all death and an inhospitable environment. So it's, even if life sucks here, it's better than being dead out there, right?
Right.
And I agree with you. I think that's the earmark of a good legend, is one that it's not always been the same. It's transformed over time.
Yes.
For reasons.
Yep.
And to find those reasons and what the origin of the legend was, but also why it's changed over time, and what that legend is also inherently hiding.
Yeah.
It is.
So good.
I think this character is unique too, because coming back as multiple different species, like, how is that legend told among Dragonborn? How is it told among tieflings? What do the Leonin remember of that legend? And I think that gives you a really awesome opportunity to take this character and this story and really twist it a little bit to what parts of the legend do they hold like highest, right? What parts do they scrub out because that's not part of their culture's like philosophy or import? Yeah, I think that really opens up a lot of doors.
And what was also really exciting, I will say, is we did have a larger city that we would come back to at various points in the campaign. And what was really cool was being able to go back to that city after a period of time. And yes, there is this overall legend after all of that exists in that world of this legendary paladin. However, in that city, there's various different stories of when he was a human.
Yeah.
He went and ended up giving a very generous donation to the Church of Bahamut when he took up the subclass and really committed himself to that. And so that church knows, there was this young paladin that pledged himself here and committed not just his word, but his action and all this. And then when he came as a Dragonborn, a little bit later, we had a session, essentially a shopping session.
Yep.
And I was like, I have all these spell slots. Hey, GM, is there like, I don't know, a hospital or something in this city? And he was like, yeah, there would be. And I was like, I think Gerrard would go there and just use all his spell slots and lay on hands and just heal everyone up and restore lesser restoration. I also had a necklace, prayer beads, so I had greater restoration. I was like, we're going to be here for a couple days and we're not doing shit. I was like, I'm going to just dump all the spell slots into healing people. So then there was this a story that came out of that, of this generous Dragonborn paladin that came and healed all their sick and cured the blind and all these people that were crippled. And then the tiefling, when he was a tiefling, one of the skeletons in his closet is, they prioritized going after one of the big bads instead of going back to their home village. And when they went back, they found out that they had accidentally unleashed a devil that went to their hometown and killed everyone.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how, they started off so lighthearted. Nobody's parents were dead. Everyone died. Level 10,
Give it time.
everyone
Give it
was
time.
dead. This devil came in, opened up a portal to hell. All these demons were there, killed everyone. It was an absolute massacre. But he was a tiefling.
Yeah.
And so the few people that did live got to see this tiefling paladin fight with his allies to bring down this devil that slaughtered the village. And so it was really cool because he did a very classic D&D perspective with tieflings, which is, that they're typically alienated.
Sure,
People believe them to be bad. And so the idea of these people being able to see in this legend of this tiefling who was paladin and serving for good and fighting evil, literally a devil, turned into a story of its own. And so there's all these other different stories and legends. They're all him, but to everybody else, nobody's going to inherently believe that that's the same dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But no. He was a freaking lion guy, guys. No, he was half demon. He was a tiefling. He
I
had
love
big
that. That
horns.
makes it so good.
No, this Gerrard was a dragonborn, silver scales. No, it's just some poor peasant farmer guy that was able to wield a longsword. And it was just, it's really cool. So he has this really big stuff, but he has all these other stories that he's loosely associated with. But it's always like a conspiracy sometimes, too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I heard one time, guys, he was like, he was a bugbear. And he did so much good stuff as a bugbear. It's like, no. But the Dragonborn part was real, I hear.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. This is why I love this segment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Charlie, thank you again for just being here and getting to talk to us. We've had a blast. Big fan of Gerrard. If you are out there and you are looking to build your own legend, I think there's a lot of great ideas. Or if you need to borrow one, I think you've got plenty of stuff here to spice up the campaign.
Thanks, everyone, for sticking around and listening to our show.
If you enjoyed it, let me ask you a favor. Follow us and leave a like wherever you get your podcasts. It'll really help us out.
And if you have anything to say back to us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for The Dapper Meeple. Or you can email us at dappermeeplegaming@gmail.com.
And as always, we'll save you a seat at the table.